Black Armory was founded to stand against the coming shadow.
As Sid and Omega
But when
had
the darkness returned
cut for
and
them
our
to
defenses
do
faltered,
this, Sid says,
my
"Hey,
work
why don't you
made
play
no
some
difference.
Jarek with me and some other people
Humanity's
for money,
focus
and we
shifted
can
to
go
the
win some good
stars.
cash here."
And
Sid
now
offers her 30,
the forges
Omega
are
returns
gone.
with 60, and Omega
If I
is really
hope to
starting to
maintain
show
the
some muscle.
Armory's
She's
legacy,
hustling a little
it's
bit.
clear
So
I
it's
must
really
build
fun to see.
something new.
As the Senator is interrogated
The
by
fallen
the
refugees who fled Europa tell of some unfinished Braytech research on matter programming.
The ITO interrogator
I
droid,
believe
the
it
same
could
one
be
that
a
we
new
saw in
start for the
1970, the same,
Armory.
but the same
I've
model we
used the
saw in
Vanguard network
1977
to download as much as I can.
courtesy of Darth Vader
But
on
some
the
branches
first
can't
Death
be
Star.
accessed
Now, a
remotely.
brief little history
And
here.
Europa remains a
Droids
dangerous
are
front
heavily
for the
feared by the
Lightnings.
time of A New Hope. So at this
I
point, they're
need
still
you to
kind of new.
enter the
But the
Braytech
show is
facilities
starting to
and
reveal
download the
fact
data
that the Empire
manually.
is really coming into effect here. That we're not so much in the time of the prequels. We are now quite a bit after that, and the technology of the Empire is everything is just starting to come in. You know, the uniforms, the Imperials, the regime over the galaxy, the dictatorship, and soon enough, the stormtroopers. Now, how these droids would work is they would inject the target with really anything the Empire wanted, but typically it was something that would make them more susceptible to pain, lowering their pain tolerance and finding the weakest and most painful points on their bodies to attack for hours until they revealed certain information. Delta recorded everything that was going on. The Bad Batch throws some smoke bombs, stun everyone but the Senator, and escort him out of there. The rest of the escape is just the Bad Batch outwitting the clone troopers in every imaginable scenario. And I can go into every single scene, but honestly, it was just pretty cool. They just beat up everybody, and they went in there strategically, and they did everything that they could to get the Senator out of there safely. No matter how uneven the odds, even when ATTs were shown right up into their face, they knew how to dismantle them and get past them. The Bad Batch proved that they are simply that much superior compared to the regular clones. Even just the few of them against all of these clones were far more of a match than the clones could handle. They finally get to their ship. They convince the Senator, who seems to have a pretty good heart, he seems to be a pretty good guy for his people, that he needs to escape to live and fight another day. The show is literally Pixar quality at this point. I'm feeling the shadows, the music, the lighting, the graphics. It's all on another level. And I thought season 7 of Clone Wars with Darth Maul fighting Ahsoka was pushing the bar, but this really keeps taking it to new heights every single episode. As they head to Pandora, they see Omega and Sid playing the Jarek against the huge crowd of spectators. This shows how advanced Omega's mind is compared to not just the but all different species, including the Pantoran. So this one is not a Chiss, he's a Pantoran. And fun fact, this is also the same species that George Lucas played in little cameo, his little Easter egg in the Sith.
This is not Shark's exclusive,
I want you to tell me the name of his character in the comments right now. If you're still here, let me know if you know that that's a real sweet Easter egg.
From all sides. This is nothing new.
So
Between
everybody doing all the aliens in strategic game of space chess, helping Jarek, and Sid tells them that she's never seen anyone like this. So clearly this tells us that there's much more to Omega than just being Boba's sister. She could be force sensitive, she could be able to have Jedi reflexes and see things before they happen, sort of thing, but I really don't think that she is force sensitive. If she is, that'd be really cool, but I think she's just extremely intelligent, and extremely witty, and extremely empathic. She also paid off the entire debt to Sid, so now the Bad Batch and Omega can head off on their own adventure. It's been about 6 episodes of Sid and her bar, so frankly, dude, I was getting pretty tired of this. I'm glad we're moving on. But, honestly, I could have an entire season just on, them doing these missions with Sid and all that. Get on to more important things. So I think now the Bad Batch might try to find Boba Fett as any other clone like her, a direct genetic copy of Jango Fett, which Tech told everyone in the previous episode that Boba Fett's original name was Alpha, and that the Empire doesn't know where he is, or the Kaminoans rather, and the Empire, I suppose. Only with a mutation of being a girl is the difference is what sets Omega apart from being like Boba. I think Boba Fett won't like Omega at the start. I just don't see him really liking anybody until they kind of grow on him, or they prove themselves worthy. And that just seems like the whole Jango Fett mentality, you know. But eventually, I hope that he'll grow to see her like family, and we can get some pretty cool dynamic between Bro and Sis, and they can each show each other up. It'd be sweet, especially if we get to see her in feature episodes, which just means that we get to see more Boba in live action. I'd really like to see that. So let me know right now who that character was in Revenge of the Sith that George Lucas played. What was his name? And of course, what you think the next episode of The Bad Batch will encompass. Will we see Darth Vader? Will we see the Emperor? Will we see Darth Maul? So many different things to think of here, and I will make many more videos this next week about it. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for your time and watching and sharing your thoughts with me here on the channel and in the comments. I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Welcome to the Disney Bundle, where Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus come to life on all your screens. Hulu Originals, Disney Hits, and must-see sports. Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. Get the Disney Bundle today. I need to assemble an elite team of ball players.
Hold up, Doc. Ran out of games to play for? I'm a savage. We rapping? Plastic, ratchet, sassy. My money's on the other team.
Space Jam, rated PG, July 16th.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name is Michael Roman, aka All Fires, and I am super excited today to share an exclusive with you guys from some of our very own sources here at the channel regarding Megan Thee Stallion joining the MCU. We're going to break down what future projects she's showing up in, what role she's playing, and one other detail about this series. But first, if you could grab the subscribe button, we're still giving away a ton of stuff here at the channel. So PlayStations, subscriptions. If you want to be entered to win, it's super simple. All you have to do, hit that subscribe button, then leave a comment down below. And if you want, stick around at the end of the video. We'll get into all the giveaway stuff again there. Also, no matter where you are in the world, but specifically the US, if you're partying this weekend for 4th of July, I hope you have a great time with friends and family. But remember to be safe, take care of each other. You know what I'm talking about. So again, this is coming from one of my very own sources here at the channel in an exclusive. This has not been reported anywhere else. Shout out to editorials like CBR.com and the other ones that have properly credited me for my exclusives in the past. I sincerely appreciate it. Here's looking at the ones that haven't. However, we are happy to report that Megan Thee Stallion has indeed joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe and will be showing up on Disney Plus in the future She-Hulk series. We have also learned about the role that she's playing none other than Megan Thee Stallion. That's right, she won't be showing up as a superhero or supervillain. Rather, she'll be playing herself on the show. One other interesting detail we picked up about the role is that apparently it's not limited to a cameo, as she might have actually filmed for multiple episodes, indicating that it would be a reoccurring role. Now, I remind you guys here at the channel at least twice a week to take everything, including this video, that doesn't come directly from Marvel Studios, which this doesn't, with a grain of salt. However, I vetted this with 2 separate sources involved with the production. I'm almost 99.9% sure when I come out and report this kind of exclusive. And again, huge shout outs to the other editorials around the web. And if you report the stuff, you do it correctly. I sincerely appreciate that, because I've done it for all of you guys for the last 3 years. Either way, I'm super excited, guys. Let me know in the comments your thoughts and reactions about this. Obviously, not the first person in the music game to cross over to acting, and not even specifically with the MCU. I'm excited for the She-Hulk series, and I've got some more stuff on the way. I'm trying to vet now about it, but I am interested 100% in what you guys think.
Hey, listen, y'all about to hear me wash clothes.
Are you Megan Thee Stallion fans? And what do you expect from the character in relation to the main character, played by Tatiana Maslany? I am all ears, as always. Let's get into giveaway stuff and some administrative stuff before I go. Okay, it's great to see some of you guys on the channel, although some of you have now been seeing me weekly with their watch parties. That's right. If you stay up to watch Loki late, 3 a.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific, stop by the channel. I watch here while you watch at home, but then we have after discussion. We have a ton of amazing theories that can shout it out to the community. It's really awesome. It's grown every week. We've had our biggest stream week on week on week. Well, when my internet wants to cooperate. Come on, Comcast. Seriously. Either way, stop by the channel. I'd love to see you guys, and I really appreciate the community the way it's grown there. So come be a part of it. The second thing is that we're still running a million giveaways. Yeah, we're giving away so much stuff. We're continuing to give away stuff. All you have to do to enter to win, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. My name is Michael Roman. I also go by Allfires for music, so you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at IamFires. You can also find me on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, wherever you find your original music under the name Allfires, and I would sincerely appreciate it if you checked it out. Thanks for checking out the channel, guys. Stick around. We'll be posting again real soon.
T-Mobile is the leader in 5G. Experience it now with up to 4 powerful iPhone 12 Pros with 5G on us. And with our new Magenta Max plan, you'll get unlimited premium data that can't slow down based on how much smartphone you use. And taxes and fees are included. That's right. Unlimited premium data and up to 4 iPhone 12 Pros on us. Only at T-Mobile, the leader in 5G. Skill delivers incredible cordless power with advanced lithium battery technology for longer runtime, longer battery, maximum power,
I got to give me a second.
plus 15-minute charging.
Watch the close.
Didn't begin.
I'm gonna go
The power. One battery powers every tool. Skill. What powers you? Learn more at skill.com.
Zone B
What's happening,
captured.
Nerd
You
Squad?
have
Welcome back
advantage.
to Top 10 Nerd. I'm your curly headed Killer McWaters. On today's list, we're going to be looking at 10 more of Wolverine's weirdest villains. That's right, we're back with part 2. You know why you clicked the video. If you haven't seen part 1, that's fine. You can watch it after. I won't tell. You'll just Tarantino the whole thing. That's one way of doing it. Let's dive in. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have The Orb. Today's first appearance in Ghost Rider Volume 6, issue 26. The Orb is, well, yeah, he's the guy with an eyeball for a head. Cool. He's a notable feature. And then, well, he was born like that. His parents abandoned him after a few under the Now, the eye can do much more than trick people out explicitly. The eye can blast people with its red energy, and it can block on walls. So it's only fair that you cross paths with Spider-Man and Wolverine during your life. In Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, the Orb has backups that are group of robbers called Orblades. Which I got a they're trying to get their hands on these rare jewels locked away in the bank. And as they're fighting each other, the three of them get transported across the timeline thanks to the time diamond. I guess fighting an eyeball wasn't good enough, and alternate timeline made the Orb even bigger and more powerful, as well as the take on Peter and Logan. Number 9, Iron Monkey. Appearing only in Wolverine Volume 2, 108, the Iron Monkey was an assassin sent by the hand to take down Wolverine's pale flower. This happened right after the two interrupted troops plans in Japan in the Tokyo Metropolitan Police had them locked up. All of a sudden, the Iron Monkey teleports into the holding cell, attacks all the guards, rips off the door to Logan's holding cell. This guy was laughing at Wolverine's pale flower and they were trying to attack. It was useless to try to attack this guy. Nothing was working against the Iron Monkey's durability. And then all of a sudden, Yohai excluded Wolverine on her sword of the clan Kushida, a sword that was forged from meteorite iron by demons. Yeah, that's nothing to do with it. And before we continue on with this epic part 2, you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Honestly, it really helps the channel a lot. All you do is go and that's it. For more content, you look brighter, maybe I'll get a haircut, who knows? Good things will happen if you click like, basically, or subscribe. Oh my god, you can subscribe. Number 8, Tiger Shark. Not a Tiger Shark, but Tiger Shark. A Todd Hargan made his first appearance in Submariner issue 5. It was the talented swimmer who took part in the Olympic Games. But after damaging his spinal cord in the man, Todd was devastated to get back into the water. So he participated in an experiment performed by Dr. Lemuel Norton. He's a dork, sorry, that's where he had his DNA birds with a Molar and a Tiger Shark. So obviously now we have his personality changed as well as his abilities. He's initially a foe of Namor, of course, but in Wolverine Volume 2, issue 19, Logan got a little bite in the wild himself. Fighting underwater turns out was much different. Wolverine gets his claws to stuck to freeze at one point. Honestly, I felt like I was drowning while reading this. Little stressful. Number 7, Spiral. Ricochet Rita was once a professional stunt performer. Made friends with a guy named Longshot who was actually from, well, not Earth, but Mojover. She was then attacked by this insane future version of herself named Spiral. Now, thankfully, she was able to defeat Spiral, but after that, she followed her heart. She went back to the dimension with Longshot, came back to the Mojover. Nobody got there, they were both captured by Mojo himself. And Longshot's mind was like, she forgot to get an effort for that. Oh, she actually a lot worse. Mojo got his scientists to modify her mentally and physically. So now she's got 6 arms, turned her hair gray, and she could also see other dimensions. So a bit of an upgrade, that's cool. She was a twisted version of Mojo in a way, and she was trained with the dark arts of magic and bottom line. So this future version of her was able to do just that. It was another feature of what ended up happening next whole time. Starro also used X-ray animated series like Hell and Volume 2. I hope to see Spiral fight 6-armed Spider-Man. That one. Number 6, Deathbird. Making her first appearance in Miss Marvel issue 9, Halcyon Armani was born the eldest child of the Magister Armani. She was born heir of the Shire Empire's throne. What luck. Must be nice. She was born with bird-like features.
Zone A lost. Power play. Enemy has your zone.
As well. Deathbird was once recruited to serve Apocalypse as the Horseman of War. She's mainly an X-Men villain, though since the movies I entered this list, and this part 2 would be a great time for Eva. Total badass. Number 5, Deathwatch. First entry in comics in Ghost Rider issue 1, Deathwatch is a demon. How fun is that? But he poses as a crime boss named Stephen Horror stuff. Not totally.
Zone C captured.
Action was ordered of Deathwatch agents to secretly march around the box with attacks and ridiculous. So right off the bat, he's a horrible villain. He has said it keep her pain and death, and he expects you mentally to just one touch. So you don't want to be anywhere near him. It doesn't feel too good. During Marvel Comics Presents issue 71, he got himself on Logan's death list. Right after Wolverine broke into defense and Matterport. He carries a katana with him and firearms, and if there's one guy to absorb pain and death from, well, Wolverine's got to fight it for the war. Also known as the Walker Between Worlds, Doombringer appeared once and only once, despite the menacing name. Wolverine's Doombringer was released back in 1997. The story told from the Magic 4 years, where Logan is uncovering the mystery of Japanese tale about Doombringer, which is currently on its way to destroy us all. The story tells Wolverine and the Silver
Zone C
Samurai.
lost. Your enemy has a power play. I've seen enough.
Now, the fight
I'm
itself
calling this one.
it's just guts and blood everywhere, but Wolverine thinks, okay, the only way I can win here is to survive.
You're defeated.
Blood.
Fight again.
That's basically how
Persistence is key.
Doombringer is massive and scaly and has sharp claws. It's definitely not one of Wolverine's easy days. Number 3.
This war is for territory.
Making his first
One that you can win. Fight another.
Mr. X is the only name given about this guy. He's kind of obsessed with death growing up. He saw a woman get hit by a car at a young age, and then drama ensued. But at the same time, it unlocked his mutant ability, being that of telepathy. He trained in combat with numerous teachers, where he would get so good, he would then just take them out afterwards. He would learn from them and then kill them. Kind of ruthless. He was obsessed with violence, so when he heard about Wolverine, he was like, oh, I have to fight this guy, let's do it. Mr. X wanted to be the best, and he did beat Logan in their first encounter. Later on, however, in issue 168, during the annual Bloodsport tournament in Madripoor, Mr. X was beating everybody along the way. He could be Taskmaster at some point. How crazy is that? That telepathy sure does come in handy. He knew which hits were coming and when. Pretty unfair, but also pretty cool. Number 2, the Mongrel. Wolverine hooks up with many women over his long life span. I don't know how to put it lightly, but yeah, he has a lot of kids that run around. Sometimes those kids grow up to seek revenge on their mutant father. The Mongrels are just that. The Mongrels are looking to kids that grew up to become Shadow Stalker, Fire Knives, Soft Fist, Gunhawk, and Cannon. Okay, pretty sweet names. To the point names. They first appeared in Wolverine Volume 4, Issue 1. Their only goal was to ruin Wolverine's life. That's it. Just cause pain and suffering. So they joined the Red Right Hand, where they were trained to be used as literal weapons, hence those fun names. And then in Wolverine Volume 4, Issue 4, before, Gunhawk burned down a room filled with Wolverines and Mentos in improvised possession of his own life. All this happened while Logan was literally in hell. So while he was down there melting, they were burning the stuff both under and above fire. Once Logan did get out of hell, 9 issues later, he invaded the Red Right Hand's base for the mongrels and attacked them. They didn't make it too far, but Logan did give them a chance to surrender peacefully. You gotta give him that. Not bad for a guy who just escaped hell. We actually just did a list on our top 10 superheroes who beat the devil, so it's kind of stuff intrigues you. Be sure to check that out once you're done here. And finally, number 1, Deadpool. Wolverine villains exists? Well, okay, here's one for you. Before all those box office records, Ryan Reynolds made the work, well, without a doubt, back in 2009. X-Men Origins Wolverine was a train wreck. It was a horrible take on Wade Wilson. The film was made during the 2007 writer's strike, so it was just a mess from the get-go. I feel like now we can rip this movie apart because, it's in the past. Logan's feeling he had a great ending. Deadpool's now in the MCU after 2 successful R-rated movies, so he's good. It's cool. We can make fun of it. At the beginning of this movie, it's kind of close. I mean, Wade is quick with the clips, and the action, although it's aged and cheesy, is still at least entertaining. That isn't until later on in the movie when he returns for a big showdown with Wolverine, and it's just not the guy. It's not the same shot. It's not even close. Not the guy. Just not.
You're not that guy. No, trust me. You're not that guy. Okay? Absolutely. Rest of you up.
Thank you so much for joining us on this part 2 of Wolverine's vs. Villains. Please leave all your suggestions down below so we can get around to them. They're always so fun. I'd love to go through them. And if you want to see a part 3, just click the thumbs up, click subscribe. Let us know you liked it, and know we keep going. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
USAA classic checking from members like Cassie. She's no nonsense and makes every dollar count. With no monthly service fees, USAA helps her keep more of her money for what matters most. USAA. What you're made of, we're made for.
Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another Bad Batch Breakdown. In today's video we're going to be breaking down episode 10 Common Ground. I'm going to start off by saying this episode was one hell of a ride. It had a very different feel compared to the previous episodes of the series, but I loved it nonetheless. In a sense it was very reminiscent of a typical Clone Wars episode, but much more fast paced. As always guys, I'm going to save the rest of my thoughts for the end of the video. So without much further ado and without any more jibber jabber, let's get straight into the full episode breakdown. So as we expected from the remaining trailer footage, our episode starts on Raxus. Also called Raxus Secundus, this planet featured heavily in the Clone Wars episode titled Heroes on Both Sides. A lush world in the Outer Rim, Raxus was the capital planet of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Because the Senate of the Separatists was headquartered in the capital city of Raxalon, Raxus became the home to a number of Confederate senators, including Nina Bolteri of Onderon. At this point in the timeline though, as we see in the episode, the Empire has taken control of the planet. The local citizens of Raxus gathered together as a sinister new Imperial called Captain Bragg addresses them. She promises them prosperity under Imperial occupation. But as you would expect, the people protested this strongly. She talks about a mandatory curfew in the name of protection. All the while, a senator called R.B. Singh nervously waits next to his protocol droid GS-8. He is expected to declare Raxus as a planet unified with the Empire, but obviously he's not comfortable and backs out at the last minute, stating that he puts the interest of Raxus and its people first. This act of defiance immediately leads to his arrest. At this point, artillery walkers come into action. These were the main battle tanks of the Grand Army of the Republic. They featured 6 articulated legs for propulsion, which were very low to the ground. This was to reduce the walker's top speed, but provided it with increased stability. GS-8 escapes to contact Sid, where back on Old Man Tell, she tells the Bad Batch that their next mission is to free the Senator. Nervous about the prospect, Sid reminds them that her debt is not paid, so in a sense they can't refuse. Knowing how dangerous the mission is going to be, Hunter leaves Omega with Sid, but warns her to look after her. On their way to Raxus, we have more tension between Echo and the others. I spoke about this in a recent video and it's more apparent than ever. Echo's loyalty is still to the Republic, even though it's fallen. As such, it's only natural that he has reservations about going to the capital of the Separatists. This argument lasts between Echo and Tech until they land on Raxus, when they realize that GS-8, the protocol droid, is their client. Personally, I think there's a lot of foreshadowing of a greater argument between Echo and the others. Back on Order Mantell, Omega is clearly saddened by the fact that she wasn't allowed to go on the Batch on this mission. It's worth pointing out something quite obvious, that Sid is not very motherly, but instead it's rather crude and to the point. But this is where we get a very important piece of insight into Omega's abilities. She sees Sid playing Dedrick with the Ithorian and the Nikto, and that's when Omega chimes in and wins the game for Sid. She then reveals that she's great with strategy. This, of course, harkens back to the fact that she's an unaltered Jango Fett clone, also it seems, and Jango Fett was known for his tactical prowess and strategic abilities. It's one of the main reasons he was chosen as the template for the clone army, so we can only assume that this was something that was passed on to Omega. Now, as I said, the game that they were playing is Dedrick. We first saw Chewie play it in A New Hope, and this was a game that was also known as Holochess. Dedrick was a popular game in which teams of holographic creatures battled one another on a circular board. It was commonly played on starships and homes throughout the galaxy. And just a reminder, guys, you always let rookies win.
I'm kidding!
Not that we saw any in this episode, but anyways, Sid then makes a deal with Omega, that Omega will win games of Dedrick for Sid in exchange for 50% of the winnings. Now back on Raxus, Hunt has a slip-up with Tech, when he forgets that Omega is not on the mission with them. At the same time, a B-Sing has been arrested and threatened by Captain Bragg with an interrogator droid. This is again a massive callback to the original trilogy, and it's something that Vader used on Leia in A New Hope. Considered to be one of the most horrific things in the Star Wars universe, these droids were literally according to StarWars.com, first, it would inject the prisoner with a mentally disabling chemical that would decrease the pain threshold while also forcing the subject to remain conscious. It would then do a read on the body detecting the most sensitive areas. And as for the next part, I'll let you use your imagination for the rest. After a successful mission, the bad will execute RBC. He contemplates a difficult choice: stay on the planet for the sake of his people, or leave as a free man. His protocol droid GS-8 reminds him that there's nothing he can do for the people of Raxus while in custody, so he decides to leave with the Bad Batch. The episode ends when the Bad Batch return to Ord Mantell with the Senator. They see Omega winning games for Sid, and Hunter very strongly disagrees. Sid gives the Omega strategy being tried that
Glad to see that superconductor is being put to use. I'll leave you to it, but get in over your head? Call me. I still owe you a rescue or two. Shaw, over and out.
We're hunting dust captains. Kill the mechanics to draw them out.
How short this episode was. I enjoyed it, but it was more of this was early in the season and not later. We only expected all in all, I think it's fair to say that it is a I think the best one is good for as a standard, different that she's a competition with amazing creations. It's really great to see her develop as an individual as she detaches herself more and more from her roots back on Camino. But evidently, in and of itself, that comes from a special this, especially in the age of I also think the world building taking structures before this episode brings us insight into what it would look like once the Empire had taken over. The visuals were absolutely stunning, and it was really disappointing that we didn't get what's meant to be. Since the trailer footage, I truly expected to see them. As for my rating of this episode, I'm going to put this one a solid 7. It wasn't my favourite one so far, but I would not do it for an episode. I think it's a very impressive. I was slightly disappointed that we went from last week's episode, which was very intense and at a much slower pace. Last week, we followed the because we can scale at high intensity, storage is much more complex than Mega and so on, but of course this is a multiple season show, to be patient. We have 6 episodes to go season 1, and I noted that appropriately this episode felt like a second one episode. As I say, this one gets a 7 out of 10, and it's only because the action sequences are so much fun. Versus all I know is gorgeous and perfect. Something else I really do plenty of things rather than blasting. But those are my thoughts on all of us having opinions on different attributes in the series. So what did you guys think? What did you think of so deep in the drama? Did you enjoy it? Was so be sure to get the information on the notification and finally guys, if you feel please consider communicating. Otherwise, I'm still using to wait
Another new different home really fast. And that's getting to there exactly known for our speed. Work with what you have. Filter.com. It is their home.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought about what would you do? Natural. This in turn lowers blood pressure, raising blood flow in the body. This results in several different positive effects. Tablets, heightened memory and concentration, 4 to 5 years. Regular optimizes blood flow. My name is Chris, and I was 19 years old. Long story short, the tumor was blocking my hormone production. I was put on antidepressants, medicine, over 7 pounds. Everything in my life was great, still going. But lucky for me, I was actually I became obsessed with hormones in the brain. Because now, first thing I found out was how awful antidepressants and synthetic hormones are for your body. Step 1 was immediately get off the pharmaceuticals. Step 2 was finding a natural solution to my problem. I used the academic resources in laboratories that I found one thing that everyone nobody has enough of blood flow. My research shows that natural mineral problem. Those natural mineral don't work. That kept leading me back to one thing. What? How did I end up here? I didn't. Abundance, garlic, pork chestnut, and pine. Redwood is not actually mineral. It's a combination of vitamins, minerals, and bark. It's 100% natural. Simple but precise formula based out with being certified effective by 57 modern medical research.
I'm glad you're still watching, because right now I'm going to tell you exactly what Redwood has done for me and tens of thousands of other Redwood customers. It's been massively effective for their life.
Short, don't using blood flow is greater than I expected. As I sped up my blood flow, the rest of my body was long. Since then, I've gotten eventually my life. The increased blood flow to my muscles provided carrying pumps, quick recovery, and increased athletic performance. Increased blood flow to my brain increased my concentration and everyone motivated me to improve my being from the ground up. Let's go to fortified my no more physical cravings, no more not just relatively working out not just remember
residents on fire. Customers love Get ready to restore the biological metal blood flow, incredible mental and athletic performance, better mood, a leader and more muscular training. Old Scott is a high leverage, backed by science, inspired by nature. I really think Sony Marvel is somehow that I think guys dropped the trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home on July 12th. It's coming, there you go. And then we can get over all of this. But of course, they are not going to, so the internet will play the blame game with crazy theories. So let's talk about how Loki is holding back your precious Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland team up. Well, the internet will be the internet, and I mean, it can't just be marketing tactics, it can't be timing. It has to be something else, some evil, sinister Google that's behind holding back the trailer. Or it could just be marketing and release it when it makes sense. But some people on the internet are convinced. They're convinced that the whole reason that we haven't seen the Spider-Man trailer is due to Loki. That Loki is the reason behind Marvel Studios and Disney hiding and refusing to release the trailer. And there's two different mindsets when it comes to this. One, people are saying that Marvel Studios is just embarrassed because Spider-Man will be the greatest thing they've ever made, even though people don't see them like the last film or the one before, and they just always their The other thought that people have is that they're getting it bad because Loki will reveal major spoilers, aka the fracturing of the universes, and we're going to get glimpses of multiple different existences of the universe, like merging the multiverse and being able to really exist, and it's going to cause whatever the magic is. I honestly think it's more that one than anything else. Let's be real, guys. Marvel Studios and Disney have a hand, financially in the Spider-Man film. Like, literally financially invest more than any other Spider-Man film. I think that financial investment, to me at least, tells me that, they're probably very smart about this. Like, very, very smart about this. And they're taking their time, and they are waiting for things to fall into place. And again, we don't know how the next Spider-Man film will establish itself and where it belongs and what it has to do and how they're playing off of it or anything else. Like, we know nothing. So there probably is an element of trying to avoid spoilers and trying to play this in a very careful way, especially when you have so many different projects that are out there. They don't want them to focus on one another. I think everybody understands that one. They don't want to feel like one on top of the other completely, undoing what the other one does. Careful with how you market things.
Kind of what?
Stabilize yourself. We saw this where Deadpool released against Solo, released against
still laying down? What y'all did last night? Where you still laying down?
Deadpool didn't make enough money. Solo being sandwiched in between that didn't make enough money. Avengers made money. But that's that. So I don't think this is in any way more confident that nobody is going to come out. They know what they're going to release.
No.
Got the confirmation that there were no longer DLCs on the 11th. Combat Pack 3! It's not happening! If you were still holding out hope, if you were still thinking after E3 there was a chance. Yeah, they officially made a big mistake. That NetherRealm is now focusing on its next project. 2 years before MK11 or and nothing left. There you go. Mortal Kombat 11 lasted about 2 years, and that was it. Last thing we got was the least impact, not even a tie-in. Massive opportunity. Yes, finally now. Probably gonna be really pissed off, especially after hearing.
You said if I what? That's what we exactly for me.
No Ash Williams. In the source code, UMP3 skin 2018. Yeah, 2018. That's it. Never gonna see the light of day either. So, it's like, stop. Movie. Most recent live action. I'm not sure if it's because of COVID, because this was the plan all along. I'm sure things are always subject to change, but at the very least, we got a statement. Again, no one has said is this DLC only? We don't know. Very least, Mortal Kombat 11 comes and so after money being collected, so I don't understand why this didn't come to do more. I know why. They're going to tell the copies and say, hey, we're not giving more DLC content. No one's buying the game, or at least a lot less than one. So they held on to it for a month. Yeah, here it is. So, with that said, what do you guys think? States, bombs, and Mortal Kombat 11.
You got on holiday now.
Whatever their next project is,
I guess that's kind of better.
MK11, no more DLC. No Cyrax, no Smoke, no Sector, no Ermac, no Reptile, no Hat, no Doomslayer. Love you guys, keep going.
Welcome to the Disney Bundle, where Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus come to life on all your screens. Hulu Originals, Disney Hits, and must-see sports. Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. Get the Disney Bundle today.
Okay, Jerome. But damn, bro, you go turn down the free branch, bro. I'm about to go in the house. I'm about to go in the house, bro. Yeah.
Layered the basket of steel kite. My fiance's always so jealous when I get those cool products for you. They scour the globe and find one of the radar brands. Makes you go, ooh.
They only got $400 charges.
The value of every box is at least around $70 a month. So let the spoke force do it for you.
If that's the case, if I'm going to say $9 for you, why would you order one from over there that's cute and weird?
Dude, we overstocked today. We got tall Loki, short Loki, Tamara Loki. We have reptile Loki. We got more Lokis than we can handle. We're passing the chaos on to you. We got the Loki you want. One Loki is kind of cool if you're into that sort of thing. We know what's really cool. Our phones. The Time Variance Authority had their hands full with just 2, and now 4 more popped up. Just who are these Lokis and what's their deal? Some we know and some we can put together. As for what they're up to, well, you never know. Kid Loki is the easiest Loki to pick out of the havoc of Loki. Oh, I'm just going to decide that a herd of Loki is called a havoc. Not just because he's a kid dressed like Loki, but Kid Loki was high on the anticipation list for one of the potential outcomes of the Loki series. That's because Kid Loki has a fairly important history in the comics. The process in which adult Loki was eventually button sprout that goes back to years into pure Loki. Just like his cinematic counterpart, Loki bounces back and forth between wanting some redemption and just wanting to cut somebody, with lots of room in between. While in general, Loki just on Loki's side has some soft spots, and one of those is adopted home Asgard. So when Asgard found itself floating with 200 people to Oklahoma for reasons, and Earth's defense left in the hands of Northern Goblin Osborn for the worst reason, Loki found himself both against and for Asgard with disastrous results. In the process, Loki was killed. As anyone would be aware by now, dying is the non-Loki. This one is death by having Hello engaged the books, so when he died, he doesn't hell, but rather was reborn. Nice work, you did it. Kid Loki didn't know he was Loki until his brother found him and caught him up, mostly. Sadly for Kid Loki, the whole betrayal of Asgard from the past life Loki kind of stuck, and Asgardians were still upset about it. To make matters worse, his former adult self, Ecole. Ecole sort of intended for Kid Loki to be his way back, but Thor had taught Kid Loki if he wanted to. Very well learned Loki intended to clock some good guy hours. The Young Avengers include Eli Bradley, the grandson of Isaiah Bradley, the secret super soldier, met Eli during Falcon and the Soldier. Stature, better known as Kathy Lang, is the adorable daughter of Scott Lang. We first met her in the first Ant-Man movie. Miss America, America Chavez, joined the Young Avengers in the same way she's joined the which was a magnet. Kate Bishop took over Hawkeye duty, and she'll be training with Clint Barton in the upcoming Hawkeye series. A pair of twins that shouldn't have happened, but their spirits ended up being born separately as single boys also joined. Their names were Billy and Tommy, or Wicked, Scarlet Witch's impossible children who we met during WandaVision. That's 6 Young Avengers in already in the MCU. Join the MCU after 6 years to begin with, they form the Avengers. And Kid Loki make it a clean half-dozen more hard work as Marvel. Of course, the Loki variant du jour has been the one Loki who doesn't like being called Loki at all. He seems to fail being called Tech Savvy. Sylvie might be adverse to the Loki name because she spent so little time as a Loki before becoming TPA's Loki, or she might not want to. While she was indeed adopted by Odin, in her timeline it wasn't Laufey where Odin got her. Maybe that lost apparently where Sylvie comes from, and she's really Sylvie Lushton. Sylvie Lushton thought she was an Asgardian because when Asgard was spending time as Oklahoma's umbrella, she got magical powers. She adopted an Asgardian accent like your friend who just spent a year studying abroad and moved to New York City to audition for the superhero big leagues. Only she wasn't Asgardian, and it wasn't even cool she was real. Loki had given her powers, sort of implied he created her completely. She did eventually join a team, by the way, the Young Avengers, before joining the Osborn Avengers and fighting against them. Identity for a Loki is hard, but I know it's like he enjoyed taking that huge eyeball, so there's a lot to do. The Sylvie incident was racked up a pretty good career joining other bad guy groups in graphic footage, including the Young Avengers, before the original Avengers showed up and was miffed that her name had been taken, sending Sylvie on a bit of a trial for her to earn the name. Not a trial that Amora, the original Enchantress, thought she could do. In the comics and the series, Sylvie is self-taught in that no one showed her how to use her powers. This also means she has no idea how far that power knob goes up. Given how well the last orphan with an undefined level of power and a powerful reason that turned out, it might be best not to make Sylvie mad or sad. The highlights in a very successful Loki where we saw everyone we don't like in the business end of the TVA's baton and the cohesion of the TVA task force start to crumble, and an episode where we even had the timekeepers, who predictably were just an elaborate Chuck E. Cheese style animatronic show. The highlight, without a doubt, was the legendary actor Richard E. Grant dressed in a comic book accurate Loki outfit. First of all, because Richard E. Grant's
And they go feel some type of way when everybody goes from
the franchise had been born in the 90s, Grant would be an obvious choice. Mostly, though, it's that costume. It stands out as a practical upgrade to the comic book character. The last we saw that kind of stuff as Halloween costume for WandaVision. Grant's Loki was built as a classic Loki with a lot of possibility. All the like this, they range from just a guy who's dressed up like Loki and caught up in the bureaucracy to the most exciting possibility that classic Loki is the bridge between Earth 616, otherwise known as the main part of my life, and Earth 199999, otherwise known as the crazy and pretty cool. Comic book Loki, as you can imagine, is just as much an integral part of the timeline as you. That includes Loki being the threat that caused the Avengers to form. The strangest Loki appearance wasn't a hologram of a Loki that looked like it had gotten into some of that Bruce Banner gamma radiation, and it wasn't even the Cayman with the Loki hat. Instead, it was the large Loki holding a hammer suspiciously like the one that's wielded by Loki's adopted brother Thor. In the credits, the actor who played him, Niobe Obure, is listed as his outfit was the least Loki-like and actually resembled the outfit that Thor wore. Forgotten to be filed that also features him in the first Stanley cameo. Is he a Loki from a timeline without a Thor, so Loki was treated as the hero of Asgard before the TVA tried to move him? Or just a Loki that was strong enough to break free of his brother's shadow? With a name like Boastful Loki and a hammer for swinging, he's likely to be a more Thor than Loki. I know we're supposed to be deliberating on whether it's a crocodile or alligator, but both of those alligatoids would be or not. And this one was being held by Kid Loki. That is my non-natural classification. There is really an instance of Loki belongs to an alligatoid of any kind. There is the story of Simon Walterton, otherwise known as Throg, the Frog of Thunder. That happened after a series of events that involved Thor being Frog by Loki, and eventually the start of Thor finding a former football star named Frog, who also happened to be similar shenanigans to Cayman or Crocodile Loki. That's a Cayman though, right? Pretty sure it's a Cayman. Or it could be one of Loki's rat-induced offspring, the world serpent, Jormungand. Yeah, Loki fathered both Jormungand and Fenris, because he's a shapeshifter. I'm sure that makes sense. This means that Loki has beaten Thor at his own game before Dr. Doom's game manipulating Thor. Alternate Thors have made up the Thor pool and acted as one.
You try to go to Stowe for honest and she got her EBT card. So I need to try to go to Stowe for honest and she got her EBT card.
Today, the U.S. imprisons more people per capita, incarcerated than any other country in the world. Approximately 10 million people currently incarcerated worldwide. Over 2 billion
Well, he just added the rest of her money today, I guess.
people in prison
I said they just added the
and
rest
this
of the
rise in
money
the number of
today, I guess.
incarcerated Americans also aligns unfortunately with another trend in justice system. Many people are wary of the practice of privatizing our penal system because of news stories over the years about corrupt dealings between lawyers, judges, and prison owners and managers who arrange to have people incarcerated in exchange for cash. But there's also a series of more moral and historical questions that stem out of this topic. The primary questions are, what is the purpose and function of a prison? Are they designed to punish and isolate those who break the law from the rest of the population, or are they actually places for justice, reconciliation, and reform and advocacy? If prisons are now the responsibility of the state and the private sector, then what responsibility do they have for the populations they house? And does privatizing them change those responsibilities? Even though private prisons in the U.S. have a relatively short history, with the first modern private prison opening in 1984 in Tennessee, the U.S. penal system's relationship to private money stretches back much further than that. Because the initial relationship between incarceration and private industry didn't focus on governments and prison operators who housed prisoners. Rather, it focused on extracting free labor from populations. Up until the 18th century, most of the conversation about the role and function of prisons centered heavily on punishment. Prisoners were to be isolated from the rest of the population for their crimes and were expected to suffer, including dungeons, corporal punishment, and executions. The prisons themselves were more of a way station for the ultimate punishment. But extracting money from prisoners, either through fines or labor, was also a common practice beginning in the medieval period of Western Europe, then later in the West. This usually came in the form of debtors' prisons, where people unable to pay their bills were held until they could come up with money or were offered literal debts to society with unpaid labor. Debtors could, in theory, leave the prisons once the debts had been repaid in full, but debtors' prisons were slowly abolished and closed entirely in Europe in the 19th century because they disproportionately targeted the poor. Meanwhile, the 19th century also saw the emergence of a few key changes in the philosophy and functions of prisons. First, many prisons became places of long-term captivity, in effect becoming the primary home of punished populations and not just holding zones until other, harsher punishments could be meted out. The second major shift in the discussion of prison cultures in the 19th century also came in the form of prison reform. Reform took two major strands: living conditions and ideologies. Prison reformers like Dorothea Dix lobbied to improve living conditions of long-term prisoners, many of whom were mentally ill and abused by the guards acting their care. At the same time, other reformers focused on the mission and purpose of incarceration, claiming that prisons had a moral responsibility to rehabilitate incarcerated people and reintegrate them into society. Even after the U.S. outlawed debtors and 1933, the relationship between state power, criminal punishment, and money continued throughout the 19th century. One of the primary examples for this was the convict leasing system. In her book, Professor Mary Ellen Curtin details the rise of the convict leasing system after the Civil War. The U.S. southern states found themselves in financial ruin. There was infrastructural damage caused by the battles, and their economy had been anchored by the practices of legal slavery. After legal abolition, they looked to other ways to recover financially from the ravages of war, while also severely limiting the legal rights and protections of newly emancipated black citizens. As a result, they expanded the convict leasing system. Under convict leasing, private businesses could lease a prisoner from the state. In exchange for housing, clothing, and feeding the convict, the contractors, which ranged from big factories, coal mines, and private plantations, paid the government a small fee. Convict leasing effectively reinstated the terms of legal slavery under a different name. In order to increase their revenues, they began arresting African Americans at a complete rate for crimes that were vaguely defined, such as vagrancy and theft. And even though some of these crimes were a result of overwhelming poverty and lack of opportunity in the region, many of them were charges that were designed to target poor black communities and poor white communities, although in smaller numbers overall. As a result, prisons in Alabama that were primarily housing white prisoners before the war became overwhelmingly filled with poor black prisoners by the 1870s. As convict leasing became a source of cheap labor for business owners and a steady stream of revenue from southern states determined to rebuild, the system expanded. Although primarily in southern states, the Northern states weren't entirely opposed to the system since it was
It's one thing for one of paid
even
stashes.
though it
Those
effectively
3 words are a
reinstated
threat,
legal
followed
slavery.
by
For
sarcasm.
prisoners, time spent under
Watch
the
your
dominion
language.
of contractors
The
could
fall
be
will
excessively
probably kill you.
brutal, with sentences often unofficially extended far past when their terms of service were supposed to be over. Under the guise of building a new South from the ashes of conflict, convict leasing really desired to return to the same South, grounded in the premise of class and racial equality, with a large unpaid workforce underpinning the social structure. As convict leasing became less common in the early 20th century before ending altogether, it did give way to other forms of profiting off of the labor of convicts, like the chain gangs famously depicted in films and literature. Professor Angela Davis in her book details the connections between early precedents like convict leasing and the rise of what prison abolitionists have termed the prison industrial complex of the 20th and 21st centuries. The prison industrial complex is a term to describe the relationship between private industries and incarceration. Davis points out that at the beginning of her career as a prison rights advocate and prison abolitionist in the late 1960s, there were close to 200,000 Americans in prison. By the early 2000s, that number had skyrocketed to 2 million. In part, it was associated with a domino effect of policy decisions in the latter half of the 20th century that disproportionately targeted vulnerable populations. So our social behaviors and shifts in the law created a context in which more people were considered criminals or subject to being held prisoner. Just like with convict leasing after the Civil War, the government turned to private contractors and business owners to find a place to house a new influx of created criminals. Beginning in the 1980s, the government looked to private prisons as a potential relief, in addition to building many new publicly run prisons. These policy changes effectively swelled the number of people considered criminals and saw a huge increase in the number of residents placed in prison. Individual states from the 1960s through the end of the century began to increase the number of facilities they built. And starting in the 1980s, the prison population swelled as a result of Reagan-era war-on-drug policies that targeted non-violent drug offenders with hefty jail sentences in order to tackle the rising specter of drug addiction in this country. These same policies were continued through subsequent Republican and Democratic administrations in the 1990s. As a result, many poor people and people of color began to fill prisons at an increased rate, since those populations were also more likely to be surveilled for non-violent drug offenses. Additionally, there was a move towards institutionalizing psychiatric patients that took place beginning in the 1950s and 1960s. Many long-term care facilities for people with ongoing mental health issues up until that point operated largely in the same way as prisons. Facilities were overcrowded, patients were detained without consent or the ability to leave, and in some cases suffered abuse at the hands of their caregivers. But as state-funded psychiatric facilities closed, the number of people in need of long-term care essentially shifted into the prison system. This was in part because many of these newly released patients became homeless and could be picked up for things like squatting or committing petty crimes in order to survive. When patients suffering from mental health issues are brought into emergency rooms, where they can usually only remain for around 72 hours, there isn't a consistent bridge between emergency care and long-term care, especially because the country as a whole has a limited number of beds in safe psychiatric facilities. And by some counts, there are approximately twice as many people suffering from mental illness in U.S. prisons than there are in U.S. psychiatric hospitals.
It's talking about
Even though
private
many
prisons,
medical
but the
experts
documentary
agree
on
there is
private
no
prisons.
positive correlation between mental health and committing violent crimes. So private prisons were looked to as a way of cutting the cost of increased incarceration that occurred as a result of major policy shifts. But it's unclear if private prisons actually serve their intended purpose.
She got a
to
car
save the
because she's
government money.
technically only supposed to get
However,
like
they do make
$19
up a
a
relatively
month.
small percentage of
But
the overall number of prisons in the
they've
country.
been giving an
In
extra
2016,
$200 since I
privately owned
guess about
prisons only
March,
accounted for
maybe.
about 8.5% of the total
So the
prison population,
$200
according
didn't
to
hit
the
to this
Census Bureau.
morning.
Today, we see a return to conversations and debates about the two primary goals of prisons and jails, their ideologies, and how those ideologies align
You
with
missing what I'm saying?
responsibilities.
Obviously, you missing
As
something
reports
here.
of widespread abuses
So
at
when she,
public jails like Rikers Island in New York have hit the headlines in the early 2010s, we turn again to why a country with a relatively small percentage of the world's population claims such a large percentage of its incarcerated population. And these debates have returned in large part to the same terms they were focused on during 19th century reforms. As prison abolition activists focus on the decline of private and state-run prisons, others have argued that there could be potential ways forward through restorative justice. Restorative justice advocates are looking to practices that center the well-being of both the victim and the accused by seeing if there are ways forward besides incarceration and social isolation. At the heart of it lies the question, What does it mean to forgive someone for a crime they committed after they have paid what we refer to as the metaphorical debt to society? And can true justice look different than just conviction and incarceration? Thanks for watching this episode of Origin of Everything, which is produced by Complexly. We produce over a dozen channels, including Nature League, where host Britt Garner explores life on Earth and questions what we think we know about the natural world. For a taste of what you can expect, we've linked to their best of playlist in the description below. That's it for this week. This episode is the second in our series on class and American culture, and if you want to see more, then check out our episode on racial passing, and I'll see you all back here next time.
You have his explorer spirit, and you're not afraid to take risks. Careful now.
T-Mobile is the leader in 5G. Switch today and unleash the power of 5G with up to 4 iPhone 12 Pros on us. That's right, up to 4 powerful iPhone 12 Pros on us at T-Mobile, the leader in 5G.
Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. We finally find out in the last episode of the Bad Batch why people are after Omega. Spoiler warning for the next minute. We found out that the Kaminoans are one of the interested parties who want to recover her. Lama Su, the Prime Minister, was the one who hired Cad Bane, and Nala Se was the one who hired Fennec Shand. Both of these individuals want Omega. Lama Su wants Omega because she has the original Fett DNA in her. This is important because pure original copies of the Fett DNA are quite rare, and all of the other genetic samples left are beginning to degrade. And now that Jango Fett is dead and Boba Fett is missing, Omega is the key to the Kaminoans' continued prosperity and survival, which is directly linked to the clone trooper contract they have with the Empire. Lama Su wants Omega to essentially be harvested for her DNA and then just killed. That's something Nala Se doesn't want to happen, which is why she sends out Fennec Shand to save Omega and keep her out of harm's way. But we all know that Nala Se is a cold, heartless Dalton kid. After all, she was typically cool with killing Tunk when his inhibitor chip malfunctioned. She was also the one who drugged Fives when he was about to uncover the inhibitor chip conspiracy. So what could be Nala Se's reason for saving Omega? Is it because she's one of the mutated clones? Does she have some kind of special enhancement, like Hunter's perception, or Tech's brain, or Riker's strength, and Crosshair's eyesight? Well, my theory is that Omega has heightened emotional intelligence. Now, that might not seem like a big deal for a lot of you guys out there. It might not seem like a real superpower. But for someone who lacks emotional intelligence, the social world can be a very difficult place to navigate. And for someone with Omega's level of empathy and emotional intelligence, well, these kind of abilities can open up new doors and pathways that weren't there before. And so today we'll be taking a look at how Omega's superpower of empathy has basically helped her in Clone Force 99. If you think about it, the fact that Clone Force 99 even accepts Omega is pretty surprising. These were clones that didn't even get along with regular clones, let alone a small child who has nothing in common with them whatsoever. Omega seems to be a super fan of Clone Force 99, though. Perhaps Nala Se pushed Omega's curiosity towards them because she wants Clone Force 99 to protect her. But ultimately, it's really the work Omega puts in with each individual member of Clone Force 99 that makes the unit accept her. It all starts with a lunch food fight that Omega starts. Echo gets caught in the melee and is knocked out. He wakes up connected to two sensors, which really freak him out. During the Clone Wars, he was seriously injured and captured by the Separatists, who made serious alterations to his body, and he clearly still has some trauma from that experience. Now, Omega happens to be in the recovery room when Echo wakes up, and she immediately tosses the medical droid aside and begins to comfort Echo. At no point does she appear afraid of Echo's appearance. She accepts him as a friend and also as a patient. She tries to relate to Echo by telling him that she also has a dislike of being connected to machines and tubes and stuff like that. Anyway, Omega's appearance does seem to calm Echo quite a lot.
It's okay. It's me, Omega. I understand. I don't like being hooked up to these machines either.
Echo is probably not used to this kind of treatment. Usually clones are taken care of by other droids or Kaminoans, not even children like Omega. This is going to be an experience that Echo remembers, and it's going to help him grow closer to Omega. And more importantly, this is Omega's first connection with a member of Clone Force 99. When Clone Force 99 gets arrested later on for failing to execute Saw Gerrera's partisans and a bunch of civilians, Omega is thrown into the brig with the rest of the clones because they found her snooping around their locker room. Crosshair, who is heavily suffering from the effects of the inhibitor chip, is confused and a bit upset about the situation. He believes that Hunter is leading their unit in the wrong direction and against the orders of Palpatine. But there's still a part of him that's very loyal to the only friends and family he ever had. Omega approaches Crosshair in the prison cell, and she immediately empathizes with him and tells him that it's not his fault what's happening. It's almost as if Omega knows about the inhibitor chip's effects and how it's really causing this internal turmoil inside of Crosshair.
I know it's not your fault. You can't help it.
Anyway, this conversation draws a smile from Crosshair's face, and soon after he's taken away by the clones, and his inhibitor chip's power is increased. Crosshair does try to kill Omega in Clone Force 99 later on, but hopefully a small amount of kindness and understanding that Omega gives him is enough to turn him around somewhere down the road. Wrecker is the first guy to warm towards Omega. He also is kind of a simple individual who gets along with most of the children he sees. Perhaps that's because he's more in common with kids than he does with adults. He really seems to like it when Omega starts a food fight against Rex, who insulted Clone Force 99. But what makes Wrecker really warm up to Omega happens later during their escape from the holding cell. While everyone is putting on their armor and collecting weapons and gear, Wrecker is frantically searching for something. That something happens to be Lola, his stuffed animal. And Omega is the one who finds it. She knows through intuition and her empathy that Lola is important to Wrecker. Wrecker unfortunately ends up getting shot by Crosshair before Omega can bring him the doll. But later, as he's getting first aid treatment, Omega finally does bring Lola, which of course brings the two closer together. Now, Hunter is uneasy about Omega. It's not that he doesn't like her, he just feels completely out of his element and unprepared to take care of a small child. I mean, he's really struggling to keep his entire unit afloat since they left the Empire in the first place. Hunter also has high expectations. If Omega wants to be treated like a member of the squad, she has to prove to him that she's capable. When the Havoc Marauder crash lands on a random moon, an Ordo moon dragon steals one of the ship's capacitors. Hunter and Omega end up going after the creature to get the part back. Omega seems to like to shadow Hunter. She kind of mimics the way he moves and walks, and it's endearing and adorable. Fortunately, Hunter does get attacked by the Ordo moon dragon, and his root breather falls off, causing him to collapse. Omega stabilizes Hunter by putting his mask back on his face. What happens next is both brave and a great showcase of Omega's empathy. She decides to continue on into the Ordo moon dragon's cave all by herself. In a scene that's very reminiscent of another Star Wars heroine who goes into a cave to find a monster, Omega manages to use her empathy to connect with what the creature actually wants. And so instead of being eaten by the creature or being forced to kill the creature herself, Omega realizes that the creature just wants the flashlight
Even those closest to Cade will never find all of his stashes.
Omega's empathy doesn't just extend
The
towards
rumors of his misadventures don't even scratch the surface of the
now, most
trouble he
people,
got up
including
to.
myself, probably would have been terrified of frozen in fear. We might
Your
have even
legend is just
pulled
getting
out our
started,
blaster and
Guardian.
shot the dragon,
Maybe someday
which
it'll
probably
be your
would have led
adventures
to
that
our
inspire a
demise.
new
Anyway,
generation
after
of
this
heroes
incident
and
occurs,
explorers.
Hunter begins treating Omega like a member of the team. And it's a good thing they do because Clone Force 99 is severely lacking in many ways. Ever since they left the Empire, they no longer have logistical support, intel, or even like equipment and weapon support. Now, Clone Force 99 has to operate like independent contractors, and they have to deal with a lot of sketchy and strange people. Echo remembers a fixer who worked with the Jedi during the Clone Wars. Unfortunately, all he has is a name, Sid, and the bar in which Sid can be found. When Clone Force 99 arrives to that bar, they're told to shove off by the Trandoshan barkeep. But Omega somehow quickly realizes that the Trandoshan is Sid. Somehow she was able to observe how Sid reacts to the clones and figure out exactly who she is. This shows that Omega has a remarkable way with sentient beings and can detect the smallest movements and expressions in others that most people wouldn't pick up on. This skill that Omega has will end up helping Clone Force 99 a lot because I'm sure they're going to have to meet even more sketchy individuals. And for now, Sid seems to be the only person giving them any work to do. When Clone Force 99 meets up with Captain Rex, the famous Park Trooper to escape Order 66, Omega and Rex immediately study each other. Omega looks closely at Rex's face and determines that he's a first-generation clone. It's because of the lines in his face. This observation makes Rex smile and like Omega immediately. A few minutes later, when Wrecker complains about a headache and the rest of Clone Force 99 admits that they haven't removed their inhibitor chips yet, Rex becomes wary and reaches for his blaster. He then surprisingly puts himself in between Omega and the rest of the Bad Batch. Although we know that Clone Force 99 wouldn't willingly hurt Omega if their inhibitor chips did go off, it might not be safe to be around them anymore. And now, if anything does happen to the boys, Captain Rex has made an important connection with Omega, and that's partly because Omega impressed him right off the bat with her ability to read his face. And shortly after, when Wrecker does turn on Omega and she's unable to gun him down, it is Captain Rex who saves her life and stuns Wrecker from the back. When Cad Bane comes for Omega, not even Hunter can stop him. Which isn't surprising because Cad Bane has dueled top Jedi and beaten the top mercs in the galaxy in one-on-one fighting. But the one weak spot that Cad Bane's organization has is his little servant droid, Toto 360. Now, you might remember Toto 360 from the Clone Wars when Cad Bane makes his audacious holocron heist in the Jedi Temple Library. During the heist, Cad Bane uses Toto 360 as a decoy and essentially makes him a ticking time bomb. Toto 360 is rebuilt by Cad Bane, and for some reason, he still remains loyal to Cad Bane. Maybe he's had a memory wipe. During the shootout between Cad Bane and Hunter, when Bane's shot finds Hunter's chest piece, his own blaster shot takes off Toto 360's leg. A leg that Cad Bane never bothers to fix. Omega sees an open. She makes Toto 360 question whether Bane actually cares for him. She also offers to help reattach Toto 360's leg, something that the little droid is having problems with himself. It seems like Omega struck a nerve when she mentioned how badly Bane treats the droid. And so eventually Toto 360 unlocks Omega's prison cell and allows her to fix his leg, which she does, but shortly after she also knocks him out unconscious and manages to escape. Omega shows us that you don't just need brawn or force powers to survive and succeed in the Star Wars galaxy, you can also use empathy. And that empathy will take you a long way, because if you can't do something on your own, your empathy might make connections with other people who will help you reach your goal. Anyway, let me know what you think about my list in the comment section below. Maybe I've missed some other points and where Omega's empathy really came handy. And also don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our Bad Batch coverage. And as usual, thanks for joining us today.
Keep climbing.
You are Russian Tech.
Domain.com has do at its core. And doers don't stay.
I'll try to get through this, y'all, so I can go ahead.
They get going. They get real. So get more out of your domain. Get online today at domain.com.
Ramachandra is one of the characters that we thought was not so important as, let's say, Seraph. But after delving deeper into his story, we made a revelation. You see, we have a theory that without him, Neo would have never survived and joined the Resistance. We believe that Rama's first appearance wasn't in Matrix Reloaded, but in the first Matrix movie. How and where is he in the movie? Let's find out. Welcome to Matrix Explained. Before we begin today's video, we would like to invite you to visit the Street Fighter Verse, a channel dedicated to everything Street Hadouken, or if Bison has been dead the entire time, then please visit Street Fighter Verse. Link to the channel in the description below. To understand this theory, we must first recap Ramakandra's role in the story. The first time we saw Rama was at the Merovingian's restaurant, negotiating Sati's transportation into the Matrix. He loves his daughter, and so he was willing to risk meeting the leader of the exiles. Of course, there must be a payment for the Merovingian services, and the Frenchman knew Rama's connection to the Oracle. We'll talk about this connection later. The Merovingian knows that Rama can get the termination code to the Oracle's shell. It was the Frenchman's opportunity to finally destroy her. But why would this humble program have access to such a dangerous code that could kill the Oracle? Well, it's in Rama's job description.
You're programmed. Oh yes. I am the power plant system manager for recycling operations.
Rama is in charge of the recycling process of the power plants. This process begins when the signal of a person connected to the simulation is interrupted. The human remains are then recycled.
Watch them liquefy the dead so they can be fed intravenously.
Rama has access to the signal information of the humans and their shells, and possibly the shells of the programs. Therefore, he can't create a shell termination code and give it to the Merovingian, because he has access to the humans and programs' shells. He can see them and analyze them. That is how Rama knew that Neo was in love.
I see that you are in love.
Bro, what
Rama
the
is
hell?
also a highly empathetic program. He had a minor disagreement with his wife because Rama wanted to comfort Neo.
So you're doing it. Rama, please. I do not want to be cruel to Rama. He may never see another face for the rest of his life.
I'm sorry. You don't have to answer my question.
Bro, I'm
This
gonna quit
program
right
is
now.
willing to do whatever it takes to protect
I
his
done got in
family.
like 9
But
focus
what
mode.
if his main traits are not organic,
Yeah.
so to speak? What if Rama was purposely designed for a specific purpose? That purpose being to create Sati and bring her to the Matrix. If the Oracle wanted a creation like Sati, surely she somehow modified Rama and Kamala to give birth to this little girl. But what if he had another purpose? What if Rama had to help Neo in the real
Maybe
world?
if I do it
As
without
we
this,
mentioned
it's
earlier,
like making
Rama is the
lag, so
recycling manager. That is, he's in charge of the system process that